Jake Morrison had been walking the halls of the Galactic Council building for 20 years. Today felt different. The air seemed thicker, and the usual friendly greetings from alien diplomats were missing. Instead, he noticed cold stares and whispered conversations that stopped when he passed by. The human ambassador adjusted his dark blue uniform and checked his watch. The emergency council meeting would start in 10 minutes. He had no idea what it was about, but the formal invitation had used words like restructuring and new galactic order. Nothing good ever came from meetings that used those phrases. Lisa Hayes walked beside him, her military boots clicking on the polished floor. The captain had served as Earth's military representative for 5 years. She was tough, smart, and had earned respect even from species that usually looked down on humans. Today, though, she looked worried. "Any idea what this is really about?" Lisa asked quietly. Jake shook his head. The Vorthok delegation requested it. They'd been meeting with the Zephyrians and half a dozen other species for weeks. Their planning, they kept us out of it. They reached the great chamber doors. The room beyond was massive, designed to hold representatives from over 100 different worlds. Floating platforms accommodated species that lived underwater. Special atmosphere domes housed beings that breathed different gases. Climate controls kept everyone comfortable, despite wildly different body temperatures. As Jake and Lisa entered, conversations stopped. Every alien eye in the room turned toward them. The silence was uncomfortable and strange. Usually, the chamber buzzed with friendly chatter before meetings. Council members would share jokes, discuss trade deals, or ask about each other's families. Today felt like walking into a courtroom. Dr. Peter Cole was already seated at the human section. The elderly scientist had been Earth's technology advisor. For a decade, he looked up from his tablet with a confused expression. "Something's wrong," he whispered. "I tried to access the usual research databases this morning. Half my clearances have been revoked." Amy Foster, the trade minister, arrived moments later. She looked pale and shaken. "The Altarians just canceled 3 major supply contracts," she said quietly. "No explanation, just canceled them overnight." Tony Brooks, the security chief, was the last to arrive. His face was grim. "I've been getting reports all morning. Human ships are being denied docking rights at stations where they've been welcome. For decades, our patrol routes are being questioned. Something big is happening." The chamber's main light dimmed and Prime Minister Sketh of the Vorthok Empire slithered onto the central platform. His snake-like body was over 8 feet long, covered in dark green scales. His yellow eyes swept across the room before settling on the human delegation. "Honored representatives," Sketh began, his voice carrying the slight hiss that all Vorthok had when speaking Galactic Standard. "We gather today to address a growing concern that threatens the stability and future of our great alliance." Jake felt his stomach drop. This was going to be bad. For 300 years, one species has held disproportionate influence over galactic affairs, Sketh continued. One species has made decisions that affect billions of beings across thousands of worlds. One species has grown too powerful, too independent, too dangerous to the peace we all cherish. The crystalline representative of the Zephyrian collective pulsed with bright blue light, their way of showing agreement. Other delegates nodded or made their species equivalent gestures of approval. "The humans," Sketh said, and the way he pronounced the word made it sound like a curse, "have operated with minimal oversight for far too long. Their military forces patrol our borders without permission. Their diplomats make treaties without consultation. Their technology development proceeds without regulation." Jake stood up slowly. His legs felt weak, but his voice was steady. "Prime Minister, with respect, everything you've mentioned was requested by this very council. We patrol borders because you asked us to stop the wars. We make treaties because you asked us to mediate disputes. We develop technology because you asked us to solve problems." Sketh's eyes narrowed. "Exactly the attitude that proves our point. Or see yourselves as our protectors, our problem solvers, our superiors. This cannot continue." The chamber erupted. In voices, some species shouted agreement with Sketh. Others called for calm. A few tried to defend the humans. Jake caught sight of Ambassador Kree from the Centauri Republic shaking his forearms in frustration, clearly trying to speak against what was happening. The noise died down when a massive hologram appeared in the center of the chamber. It showed a formal document with hundreds of signatures and species seals. The Galactic Restructuring Accord, Sketh announced proudly, signed by 87 member species. It requires immediate and comprehensive changes to human participation. In galactic affairs, Jake read the document with growing horror. Every line was worse than the last. Humans would have their military forces reduced by 70%. All human colonies outside Earth's solar system would be placed under council administration. Human technology would be shared freely with all species, but humans would need council approval for any new research. Human trade routes would be managed by council-appointed overseers, and worst of all, humanity would have their council representation reduced to a single vote. It's the same as species with only one planet and a few million citizens. "This is insane," Lisa said, her military training, keeping her voice controlled despite obvious anger. "You're asking us to give up everything that makes us useful to the galaxy. You're asking us to become slaves," Amy added, her diplomatic politeness finally cracking. The Zephyrian Collective's representative spoke in their musical, chiming voice. "Not slaves, properly guided citizens. Humans are too aggressive, too unpredictable. Your species needs wisdom that comes from older, more experienced civilizations." Dr. Cole laughed bitterly. "Older and more experienced. We've stopped 17 wars in the last decade alone, wars between species that are thousands of years older than us. If you're so wise and experienced, why do you keep trying to kill each other?" The chamber buzzed with angry responses. Several delegates started shouting about human arrogance and disrespect. Others defended the doctor's point. The noise grew louder and more chaotic. Jake looked around the room at faces he had considered friends. Ambassador Yilin from the Tau, Seti Siston, who had thanked him personally when human medics saved her daughter from a plague. General Vox from the Rigel Defense Force, who had called humans the bravest warriors in the galaxy after they fought side by side against pirate raids. Councilmember Prex from the Andromeda Trade Union, who had praised human honesty and fairness in a dozen different negotiations. Now they all stared at him with cold, superior expressions. They had made up their minds. Humanity was a problem, to be controlled, not a partner to be respected. The room gradually quieted. Sketh raised himself to his full height, looking down at the human delegation like a judge about to pronounce sentence. "The accord takes effect immediately," he declared. "Human military forces have 72 hours to withdraw from all non-Earth territories. Human administrative personnel have 1 week to transfer authority to council representatives. All human trade agreements are suspended pending review and renegotiation under new terms." Jake felt something break inside his chest.
At his heart.
Exactly. More like his faith in the idea that different species could work together as equals. He had spent 20 years building relationships, creating trust, finding common ground between wildly different civilizations, and it had all been thrown away in a single meeting. He stood up slowly, his hands steady, despite the anger and disappointment washing over him. The other human representative stood with him, Lisa's hand, moved unconsciously toward her sidearm. Peter's face had gone completely blank. Amy looked like she might cry. Tony's jaw was clenched so tight it probably hurt. "You know what?" Jake said, his voice cutting through the chamber's noise like a knife. "You're absolutely right." The room went silent. Sketh's eyes widened in surprise. "We have been making decisions for you," Jake continued. "We have been solving your problems. We've been fighting your wars and maintaining your peace and building your prosperity. And clearly, you don't want that anymore." He smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "So we'll stop." The silence in the chamber was complete now. Even the usual background hum of life support systems seemed quieter. Effective immediately, all human peacekeeping forces will withdraw from galactic operations. All human-mediated trade agreements are terminated. All human technological assistance programs are ended. All human diplomatic interventions are canceled. Jake gathered his papers and closed his briefcase with a sharp click. "You want to handle galactic affairs without human interference?" Congratulations, you got your wish. He walked toward the chamber doors, his delegation following behind him. At the threshold, he turned back one last time. Good luck, he said. You're going to need it. The massive doors closed behind them with a sound like thunder. Admiral Kate Sullivan stood on the bridge of the battleship New York, watching the stars through the main view screen. 3 months had passed since the council meeting, and the great human withdrawal was almost complete. Her fleet had just finished evacuating the last civilian personnel from Kepler Station, one of the most important research facilities in the galaxy. Admiral called Commander Rick Davis from his position at the communications console. All human personnel are aboard. Station is ready for whatever we're going to do with it. Kate turned to look at the massive structure floating in space nearby. Kepler's station had been humanity's gift to the galaxy. For 15 years, human scientists had worked alongside alien researchers to develop new technologies that benefited everyone. They were only months away from completing a breakthrough in faster-than-light communication that would let messages travel instantly across the entire galaxy. Now all that work would be destroyed. Begin data deletion protocols. Kate ordered everything. Research files, experimental data, technical specifications. Leave nothing they can use. Ma'am, Lieutenant Sarah Kim spoke up from the science station. Some of this research could save millions of lives. The new medical scanner designs alone could revolutionize healthcare for dozens of species. Kate felt a stab of pain in her chest. Sarah was right. The medical technology they were about to destroy could cure diseases that had plagued alien worlds for centuries. The communication breakthrough could connect isolated colonies and prevent future conflicts. The transportation improvements could make trade safer and more efficient for everyone. But the Council had made their choice. They wanted humans gone, so humans would be gone completely. Execute the deletion, Kate said quietly. Council order. 7-7 Alpha. They wanted us out of their affairs. This is what that looks like. On the view screen, small explosions began to blossom across Kepler Station as the human research teams destroyed their labs. 20 years of work vanished in minutes. Kate watched the lights go out section by section until the station was dark and empty. All ships, Kate announced over the fleet communication system. Jump coordinates are locked in. Destination is the Haven system, beyond the galactic rim. Our exile begins now. The fleet disappeared into hyperspace, leaving Kepler Station as a hollow shell floating in the void. Meanwhile, it's on the industrial world of New Terra. Factory supervisor Helen Carter was overseeing a different kind of destruction. The planet's automated manufacturing centers had been producing medical supplies, communication equipment, and defense systems for half the galaxy. Now massive machines that had run continuously for decades were being shut down and dismantled. "Boss," called out technician Mike Ross, wiping grease from his hands with a dirty rag. "The Altarians are begging us to finish their medicine order. They've got some kind of plague outbreak on their outer colonies." Helen looked at the production schedule. On her tablet, the Altarian order was 90% complete. 3 more days of work would deliver enough medicine to save thousands of lives. But the Altarians had voted for the restructuring accord. It had signed the document demanding human submission. "Shut it down," Helen said. "Send them a message. Tell them they can figure out how to make their own medicine. They're so much wiser and more experienced than us, right?" Mike looked uncomfortable. "Ma'am, people are going to die." "People are going to die anyway," Helen replied, her voice harder than she intended. "The difference is whether they die learning a lesson or die because we kept solving their problems." For them, she walked through the factory floor, watching her workers prepare the equipment for transport. Everything useful would be shipped to human colonies beyond the galactic rim. Everything else would be destroyed. The aliens could have the empty buildings, but they wouldn't get the technology that made them productive. In another part of the galaxy, Captain Ben Rodriguez was conducting one of the last human diplomatic missions. His ship, the Philadelphia, hung in orbit above the Altarian homeworld. The planet's government had been sending increasingly desperate messages all week. The Altarian president, a tall insect-like being named Chex, appeared on the main view screen. His usually proud posture was bent with worry. Captain Rodriguez, please reconsider. Our trade routes have been under constant pirate attack since your patrol ships left. We've lost 17 cargo vessels in the past month. Ben felt sorry for the individual Altarians, but their government had made this choice. Mr. President, your people voted to remove human protection from your space. We're honoring that decision. But we didn't expect you to abandon us completely. Czechs protested. We thought there would be negotiations, compromises. We thought you would understand our concerns about human power. We understood perfectly, Ben replied. You were afraid of human influence, so we removed it. You wanted to handle your own affairs, so now you're handling them. Isn't this exactly what you asked for? On the view screen, Czechs looked desperate. The Orion pirates have blockaded our outer colonies. Our defense fleet is no match for their raiders. Without your ships, we can't protect our own people. Ben had fought the Orion pirates many times. They were ruthless, well-armed, and had been kept in check only by the constant threat of human retaliation. Now that threat was gone, and the pirates were taking full advantage. I'm sorry, Ben said, meaning it. But this is no longer our responsibility. You have 30 days to establish your own security arrangements. After that, we'll be gone from this sector completely. The transmission ended, leaving Ben staring at empty space. He turned to his communications officer. Any word from command about our new assignment? Yes, sir, the young ensign replied. We're to proceed to the Vega system and assist with the evacuation of Research Station Alpha. Then we're joining the main fleet at the rally point beyond the rim. Ben nodded. Research Station Alpha was another important facility that would be lost. The station had been developing new farming techniques that could make barren worlds fertile. Dozens of species depended on that research to feed their growing populations. Now it would all be destroyed rather than let the Council have it in the Rigel system. Chief Engineer Anna Brooks was making final preparations to shut down the navigation beacons that kept the Rigel corridor safe for travel. The corridor was one of the busiest trade routes in the galaxy, but it required constant maintenance to keep the gravitational field stable. Chief, her assistant called from the control panel. We're getting emergency signals from ships already. In the corridor, if we shut down the beacons now, they could be thrown off course. Anna checked her chronometer. They've had 3 months' warning. Any ship still in the corridor knew this was coming. She paused, then activated the general communication. System. This is Rigel Control to all ships in the corridor. You have exactly 1 hour to clear the route. After that, all navigation beacons will be permanently deactivated. The responses came immediately. Dozens of alien captains pleaded for more time, for exceptions, for anything that would keep the route open. Anna listened to their desperation with a heavy heart, but her orders were clear. 1 hour, she repeated, then closed the channel. Anna had maintained the Rigel corridor for 12 years. She knew every gravitational anomaly, every dangerous passage, every trick needed to keep ships safe in the treacherous space between stars. When the beacons went dark, all that knowledge would leave with her. Ships would still try to use the corridor, of course. Trade was too important to stop completely. But without human-maintained beacons and navigation aids, accidents would happen. Ships would be lost. Crews would die. The aliens would learn to maintain the route, themselves eventually. Maybe if they were willing to pay the price in lives. Ships that learning would cost. Anna's countdown timer reached 0. She placed her hand on the master control switch and hesitated for just a moment. Then she flipped the switch. The Rigel corridor went dark for the first time in 2 centuries. Across the galaxy, similar scenes played out on hundreds of worlds. Human doctors packed up medical equipment that could diagnose diseases no alien scanner could detect. Human engineers shut down power plants and water purification systems that had kept entire cities running. Human teachers closed schools, where they had been sharing knowledge with alien children. The great human exodus was methodical and complete. Every human facility was either evacuated or destroyed. Every piece of human technology was either removed or rendered useless. Every human treaty was declared void in 3 months. Humanity had erased itself from galactic civilization. The last human ship to leave Council space was the diplomatic vessel Washington, carrying Jake Morrison and the other Earth representatives. As they crossed the boundary into unexplored space, Jake looked back at the galaxy they were leaving behind. "Any regrets?" asked Lisa Hayes, joining him at the observation deck window. Jake thought about the friends they were leaving, the good work they would no longer do, the people who would suffer because of this decision. Then he thought about the Council's arrogance, their ingratitude, their assumption that humans would always be there to solve their problems. "Ask me again. In a year," he said. "When we see how well they handle things without us." 2 years had passed since the humans left, and the galaxy was burning. Admiral Zex of the Altarian Defense Force floated in the zero gravity of his command ship's bridge, staring at the tactical display with growing horror. Red symbols marked enemy positions across half the screen. The Draconian Empire, once held in check by human peacekeepers, had expanded their territory by 300% in just 18 months. "Sir," his communications officer reported, her voice shaking, "we've lost contact with the Kepler Defense Fleet. Last transmission indicated they were under heavy attack by Draconian battle cruisers." Zex felt his stomach twist. The Kepler system had been under Altarian protection for 60 years. 2 billion civilians lived on those worlds. Without the defense fleet, they were completely helpless. "Send our reserve squadrons," Zex ordered, knowing it was hopeless. His entire navy was smaller than a single Draconian attack group. "And get me a direct line to Prime Minister Sketh. We need Council support immediately." The irony wasn't lost on him. 2 years ago, he had agreed that humans were too powerful, too dangerous to galactic peace. Now he would give anything to see a human battleship jump into the system and send the Draconians running with their tails between their legs in the Vorthok Council chambers. Prime Minister Sketh was dealing with his own crisis. Reports flooded in from across the galaxy, each one worse than the last. His snake-like body coiled nervously as he read the latest intelligence briefings. "The Orion pirates have taken control of 17 star systems," his aide reported. "They're demanding tribute from any ship wanting to pass through what they're calling liberated space," Sketh hissed in frustration. The Orion pirates had always been a problem, but when humans patrolled the trade routes, they had stayed hidden in the outer rim. Now they operated freely, knowing no force in the galaxy could challenge them effectively. "What about our combined fleet response?" asked. "Sir, the joint operation against the pirates was a disaster. We lost 47 ships in the first engagement. The surviving crews are calling it a massacre." Sketh closed his eyes. The humans had made fighting pirates look easy. Their ships were faster, their tactics were better, and their crews had a reputation for never backing down from a fight. The Council's hastily assembled fleet had none of those advantages. Or the economic situation. Trade is down 72% from pre-Exodus levels. The Rigel Corridor has claimed another 6 ships this week. Without human navigation beacons, captains are trying to navigate by guesswork. Most are avoiding the route entirely. The Rigel Corridor had been the galaxy's most important trade highway. Human engineers had spent decades mapping every gravitational anomaly and maintaining the complex beacon network that kept ships safe. Now it was a death trap that few dared to enter. On the medical world of Sanctuary Prime, Dr. Vex of the Zephyrian Collective watched another patient die from what should have been a curable disease. Her crystalline form pulsed with dim, sad colors. As she pulled a sheet over the small body, "How many today?" asked her assistant. "A young Centauri medic named Kola." 17, Dr. Vex replied, her musical voice heavy with exhaustion. "The outbreak is spreading faster than we can treat it. The plague had started on a mining colony 6 months ago. When humans ran the Galactic Medical Response System, such outbreaks were contained within days. Human doctors would arrive with advanced scanners that could identify new diseases instantly, and human factories would produce targeted medicines within hours. Now it took weeks just to get samples to the nearest analysis lab and months to develop any kind of treatment. By then, the disease had spread to dozens of worlds." Dr. Kola said quietly, "I've been reading old medical journals from before the humans left. They had protocols for this exact situation. Isolation procedures, rapid response teams, emergency. supply networks. We could try to implement them ourselves. Dr. Vex's light pulsed brighter for a moment, then dimmed again. What ships? With what supplies? The humans didn't just give us procedures, Cola. They gave us the infrastructure to make those procedures work. We threw that away when we drove them out. In the Tau Ceti system, President Chen of the Altarian Republic was facing a different kind of catastrophe. Her office windows looked out over a city that should have been bustling with activity. Instead, the streets were half empty and many buildings were dark. The unemployment rate has hit 37%, her economic advisor reported. The automated factories the humans built were our main source of export goods. Without their maintenance protocols, production is down to 15% of normal levels. Chen rubbed her temples, feeling a headache building. The human-built factories had been marvels of efficiency, producing everything from basic tools to complex electronics. But they required constant updates and adjustments that only human technicians knew how to provide. What about hiring our own engineers to figure out the systems? We've tried, ma'am. Oh. The technology is decades ahead of our own understanding. Our best estimates say it would take 20 to 30 years to fully reverse engineer the systems, assuming we can keep them running that long. A new report landed on Chun's desk. She read it with growing despair. The Draconian Empire had just demanded tribute from all Tau Ceti colonies. They wanted 50% of the system's remaining industrial output, plus hostages to ensure compliance. 2 years ago, Chen would have sent a simple message to the nearest human patrol base. Within hours, a human battle group would have arrived to escort the Draconian ships out of Altarian space. The Draconians wouldn't have even tried such a demand while humans were around. Now, she had to choose between surrender and a war her people couldn't possibly win in the depths of space. Captain Keth commanded what remained of the Centauri defense fleet. His 4 arms moved constantly across his ship's controls, trying to coordinate a fighting retreat from yet another Draconian attack. "Sir, we've lost the Aurora and the Magnificent," his tactical officer reported. "The Draconians are targeting our engines. They want to capture our ships intact." Keth's main arm slammed down on his command chair. The Draconian Empire had always been aggressive, but they had learned to be patient when humans were watching. Human military doctrine was simple: attack any peaceful species, and humans would respond with overwhelming force. The Draconians had tested that doctrine exactly once, 15 years ago. A single human battle group had destroyed 3 Draconian fleets and blockaded their homeworld for 6 months. The lesson had been clear. Humans protected their friends. Crossing humans meant facing consequences. Now that protection was gone, and the Draconians were making up for lost time. "All ships emergency jump to the rally point," Keth ordered. "We can't win this fight." It hurt to retreat, but he had learned hard lessons about galactic realities. Without human support, no individual species could stand against a major power. Like the Draconian Empire, the old balance of power had depended entirely on human strength, keeping everyone in line. Back on the Vorthok homeworld, Sketh was receiving the worst news yet. His intelligence chief, a nervous creature with too many eyes, delivered the report in a trembling voice. "Sir, we've confirmed reports of warfare in the Sigma Draona system. The old territorial disputes have resumed. Also, the nebula mining conflicts have restarted. 3 species are fighting over the same asteroid fields." Sketh felt his blood run cold. These were ancient conflicts that had been dormant for decades thanks to human mediation. Human diplomats had spent years working out compromise agreements that gave everyone what they needed while preventing warfare. Those agreements had depended on human enforcement. When humans said, "Stop fighting or we'll make you stop," every species in the galaxy listened. Now there was no enforcement, and old hatreds were erupting everywhere. How many active conflicts are we tracking? 17 major wars, 43 border disputes, and over 100 pirate incidents per week, the intelligence chief replied. "Sir, the entire galactic order is collapsing." The chamber's main screen lit up with a map of known space. Red zones marked active conflicts. Yellow zones showed areas of high pirate activity. Orange zones indicated economic collapse or disease outbreaks. More than half the galaxy was colored in warning shades. Sketh stared at the display for a long time. When he had proposed the restructuring accord, he had imagined a galaxy free from human dominance. He had pictured older, wiser species working together to solve problems with dignity and mutual respect. He had not imagined this chaos. He had not foreseen that removing humans wouldn't make other species stronger or wiser. It had simply removed the one force that kept everyone's worst impulses in check. "Sir," his aide spoke quietly, "we're receiving more requests for assistance than we can possibly handle. The Centauri Republic is asking for military support against draconian expansion. The Altarians want help with their economic collapse. The medical worlds are begging for disease response coordination. Everyone is asking us to do what the humans used to do, and can we?" Sketh asked, though he already knew the answer. Number: "Sir, we lack the military strength, the economic resources, the technological capability, and the organizational experience. The humans didn't just patrol our borders and mediate our disputes." Captain Alex Parker stood on the bridge of his exploration ship Discovery, studying the strange message that had just arrived through the deep space communication array. After 3 years of silence from the galaxy they had left behind, someone had finally found them. The message was from his old friend, Captain Keth, of the Centauri Defense Force. Alex remembered. Keth is a proud warrior who had once criticized human military methods as too aggressive. Now his voice sounded broken and desperate. "Alex, I know you have no reason to trust us anymore, but the galaxy is dying. Billions of innocent people are suffering for the Council's arrogance. I'm not asking for humanity to save us again. I'm asking for a chance to apologize and try to make things right." Alex read the message 3 times before calling his communications officer. "Send this to Fleet Command immediately. Mark it as Priority 1. The Discovery was part of humanity's new exploration fleet, mapping star systems far beyond the galactic rim. Out here, they had found wonders that the Council species could never have imagined. Ancient ruins left by civilizations that had vanished millions of years ago. Planets with resources that could fuel human expansion for centuries. And most importantly, they had found other species who actually appreciated human help. The Kenobi, a peaceful, trading people, had welcomed human protection from raiders. The crystal-based Harmony had eagerly shared technology with human scientists. The aquatic depth dwellers had formed genuine partnerships with human colonies. For the first time in centuries, humans were treated as equals rather than servants. On Haven's world, the new capital of human space, President Nancy Thompson sat in her office, reading intelligence reports about the galaxy's collapse. She had been a colonial administrator before the Exodus, managing supply lines for frontier settlements. Now she led humanity's government in exile. The reports made for grim reading. The Draconian Empire controlled nearly half of known space. Piracy had increased by 1,000%. Disease outbreaks ravaged dozens of worlds. Trade had collapsed, wars raged unchecked, and entire civilizations teetered on the edge of extinction. "Madam President," her aide announced, the senior. "Staff is assembled for the emergency meeting." The conference room held the leaders of humanity's new society. Admiral Kate Sullivan, now Supreme Fleet Commander, had built the human navy into a force more powerful than anything the galaxy had ever seen. Dr. Peter Discole led the Advanced Research Division, which had made incredible breakthroughs without having to share everything with ungrateful alien governments. Captain Lisa Hayes, now Military Intelligence Director, had established contact with dozens of new species beyond the rim. Trade Minister Amy Foster had created economic partnerships that made humanity more prosperous than ever before. "We've all read the reports," President Thompson began. "The question is whether we care about what's happening to our former neighbors." "Admiral," Sullivan leaned back in her chair. "Honestly, part of me says, let them burn. They made their choice when they tried to enslave us. We don't owe them anything." "But what about the innocent people caught in the middle?" asked Dr. Cole. "It's the civilians who had no say in their government's decisions. The children dying from diseases we could easily cure." Amy Foster pulled up economic projections on her tablet. "From a purely practical standpoint, we're better off without them. Our new trade partners pay fair prices and treat us with respect. Our colonies are growing faster than ever. We have resources, territory, and allies the old galaxy never provided. Lisa Hayes spoke up from her position near the wall screen. I've been monitoring galactic communications. The desperation is real. Multiple species are facing extinction. The Altarians have lost 60% of their territory to draconian conquest. The Centauri Republic is fragmenting into civil war. Even the proud Zephyrians are begging for help. President Thompson turned to the newest member of their council, Commander Rachel Stone. The young officer had been leading deep space exploration missions, making contact with species that had never heard of the Galactic Council. Commander, you've spent the most time with our new allies. What's their perspective on this situation? Rachel stood and activated a holographic display showing the local region of space. The Kenobi elders say they've been watching galactic politics for centuries. They call what happened to us the usual pattern. Younger species form councils and alliances, then turn on whoever becomes most successful. They're not surprised the galaxy is collapsing without us. She highlighted several star systems on the map. The Harmony Collective thinks we should ignore the old galaxy completely. They say any species foolish enough to drive away their protectors deserves whatever happens next. The Depth Dwellers are more sympathetic, but they also think getting involved again would be a mistake. President Thompson nodded thoughtfully. In your personal opinion, ma'am, I think we need to remember why we left in the first place. It wasn't just about the restructuring accord. It was about respect. They saw us as tools to be used rather than partners to be valued. The question is whether that fundamental attitude has really changed. Admiral Sullivan stood and walked to the large window overlooking Haven City. The bustling metropolis below had been built in just 3 years, a testament to human determination and ingenuity. Beyond the city, vast shipyards constructed vessels that incorporated both human innovation and technology shared by their new allies. The thing is, Sullivan said slowly, we're not the same humans who left the galaxy 3 years ago. We're stronger, smarter, and we have allies who actually trust us. If we go back, it won't be as the galaxy's police force. We'd be as equals demanding real partnership. Dr. Cole activated another display showing scientific research data. We've made breakthroughs they can't even imagine, faster than light. Communication, medical scanners that can detect diseases at the molecular level. Defensive shields that make our ships nearly invulnerable. We could solve their problems in months, but only if they agree to genuine cooperation. The debate continued for hours. Some argue that humanity had a moral obligation to help innocent people regardless of their government's past mistakes. Insisted that returning would only enable the same arrogant behavior that had caused the crisis in the first place. Finally, President Thompson called for quiet. I've made my decision. We'll send a message to the council, but not the one there. Expecting, she stood and faced the assembled leaders. We'll offer to return, but only under our terms. Full recognition of human sovereignty over our new territories, equal representation in any galactic government, and most importantly, any species that doesn't want human assistance can formally opt out. No more forced cooperation. Admiral Sullivan smiled grimly. And if they refuse, then they can keep solving their own problems while we continue building our new civilization out here. 2 weeks later, the message was transmitted across the galaxy on all frequencies. It reached the council chambers where Prime Minister Sketh read it with a mixture of relief and humiliation. Humanity is prepared to resume peacekeeping operations under the following conditions, the message began. First, full recognition of human territorial claims beyond the galactic rim. Second, equal representation in all galactic governance. Third, any species that prefers to handle its own affairs may formally decline human assistance. Fourth, all previous restrictions and oversight of human operations are permanently voided. The response from across the galaxy was immediate and overwhelming. Even the proud Zephyrians transmitted formal apologies. The Draconian Empire, faced with the prospect of human military intervention, immediately halted their expansion and requested peace negotiations. 3 months later, Admiral Sullivan's fleet emerged from hyperspace at the edge of Council territory. The massive ships incorporated new technologies that made them far more advanced than anything the galaxy had seen before. But more importantly, they carried crews who had learned their own worth during the years of exile. The first system they entered was Tau Ceti, where President Chen's government had been struggling against draconian occupation. The moment human ships appeared, the draconian fleet retreated without firing a shot. They had learned their lesson about fighting humans years ago. "This is Admiral Sullivan to Tau Ceti Control," she announced. "By request of your government, and under the new partnership accords, human forces are resuming protective operations in this system." The response from the planet was immediate. "Admiral, this is President Chen. On behalf of my people, I want to say that we are grateful beyond words for your return. We know we don't deserve your help after what we did, but we promise things will be different this time." Sullivan smiled as she looked out at the planet below. "They had better be, Madam President, because if we leave again, we won't be coming back." Within months, human ships had restored order to the major trade routes. Human doctors ended disease outbreaks that had raged for years. Human diplomats negotiated peace treaties that ended conflicts across dozens of systems. But this time was different. Humanity was no longer the galaxy's servant. They were its most respected and valued partner, and everyone knew that partnership was a privilege that could be revoked.